Hey guys, it's your boy Evyx. Father, forgive me, for I have sinned. O great Quadfather, I beg you, have mercy on this poor, basic-ass bitch. I have a guilty pleasure that I will reveal in this video. A deeply tragic guilty pleasure in Final Fantasy XIV that reminds me of back in the good old days. Seeing kids, emo bands, and Kingdom Hearts. Of myself rushing home after playing Call of Duty with the boys to slam on Britney Spears on my Ipod. That guilty pleasure. Yes, I am old as fuck. In before the comments. For real though, time for a spicy topic that I was kind of hesitant to talk about because of my own fears around the subject. What exactly my favorite DPS job is right now that I'm actually playing in game. I say this because there is certainly a negative community perception over the jobs that I enjoy, machinist being one of them. So yeah, I need to say it, I'm human too, and it really does get to me and does make me a little bit nervous. And it's the Summoner. Summoner has always been one of my favorite jobs in Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm the guy that literally made that over an hour long, over 100,000 views Summoner video purely from passion. That same love that I have for it has gone absolutely nowhere. In fact, I find the current iteration of the Summoner more fun than ever, in spite of the fact that community perception of it is, to be quite frank, awful. So let's dive into the community perceptions of the Summoner first, which, to be frank, should have little bearing on your opinion or choice of what you play. I just want to get that out the gate. So first up is that it's easy, that it's small monkey brain, that its rotation could be put into single button press using third-party tools, which obviously are against the terms of service. I feel the need now after Yoshi P's statement to say that every single damn time. Oh guys. Secondly is that its DPS is so incredibly vastly inferior, why would you pick a summoner instead of a black mage? Thirdly, that its utility is so incredibly vastly inferior, why would you pick it over a red mage? These are common talking points that you hear in Discord servers, you hear it in recruitment forums, you hear it in game, and then I hear it when I'm picking summoner and it's like, oh shoot, it wasn't red mage that joined, and I'm like, guys, damn. So let's debunk the second point, which is that summoner's DPS is just so incredibly vastly inferior. Why would you ever play it? Since to debunk this is trivial. Pulling up statistical analysis, the DPS are so incredibly close to one another in 14. The Dancer, the lowest total raid DPS job in the entire game, is only 8.6% lower than the absolute maximum, which is Samurai. And that's comparing a ranged physical DPS to a melee, which is ridiculous, and they're still only that far apart. For the Summoner though, compared to the Samurai, it's only about 5% behind. That's not bad. But for the caster role specifically, Summoner is slightly less than 4% behind a black mage, who also doesn't bring combat res or additional utility beyond that. Always keep that in mind. So, in my mind, and the mind of most people who have played with Summoners, is this DPS argument is silly. If you're hitting in rage, it's not going to be because of the Summoner. Just to add fuel onto that point, because I think that people will be like, well, that's just in trivial content. We also totally don't have on the record summoners being a part of 68 of the brand new ultimate raid clears. That's sarcasm, by the way. You know, the literal hardest content to the game. So if you want something to be worried about though, iMachine stayed up here, but they're still having clears on it, mind you. So takeaway, don't worry about Summoner's DPS, it's still very, very good. Now the second argument is on utility. Avoiding a long dissertation on the value of each of the points, Summoner has 3 solid, non-damage related reasons to bring it. First up is combat res. Sure, they can't do it as much as the red mage and brutally hard carry a run, like a red mage if you take it into an expert with a very, very, very long enrage timer, like you're gonna get that clear probably, just because you can hard carry and spit out so many revives. But in even most Savage content right now, if you need more than a handful of revives in that quick of succession, blowing both the healers and the Summoner Swift cast in 60-second time frame interval, like, you're likely going to die to enrage and may as well save time. And that's even assuming that you don't have a mechanic coming up where you're just gonna get wiped. Obviously exceptions exist, like in the Ultimate Weapons Refrain, commonly dubbed ooh woo. Oh whoa. The second point is that you have the ability to add a metric ton of healing every 2 minutes, and yes, that is something that healers can and do plan around because 2 minutes is a very reliable time frame. 700 potency in AoE, 1400 potency to a single target, yes that stacks, and so that same target, if you put the rekindle effect on them, will get 2100 potency of healing. I do notice that. I really do. And most importantly, you have mobility on the summoner, which is the third point, which allows you to resolve mechanics and help get the group to perform those oh so desirable melee uptime strats even easier. And moving on from this point before I start prattling on to why this is so valuable. Now this gets us into the third point with that, how to say it, that it's easy, that it's small monkey brain, that it's just basic, which is, this point is one that I've personally wrangled a bit with, that it's easy and so I should obviously feel bad. You're a content creator. How dare you be this shit at this game? Let's debunk this first numerically, because numbers generally don't lie. Of course, there's statistic manipulation, but you get what I'm saying here. Look at this graph, and this graph shows the percentile ranges from the lowest percentiles to the absolute bleeding edge, highest of the highest percentiles. I, in general, call this the skill expression bar, or the skill expression range. As you can see, the summoner does in fact have a pretty long skill expression range. Numerically, this is roughly from 6.4 thousand to 8.4 thousand, and so that's a 2,000 DPS difference. Samurai, as a comparison point, has roughly the same 2,000 DPS difference between their min and their max. So when people say there really is no optimization or no room to improve, the hard numbers actually do beg to differ, and their sample sizes are significantly large enough to make me confident in backing up that statement. 17,000 for Samurai and 21,000 for Summoner? Yeah, I'm confident in this. But enough of the numbers of that, enough of this and that. I want to talk about my feely craft and why I enjoy the Summoner. The term feely craft is funny to me and I love it. Just consider that a stolen term. I love it. I'm misappropriating it. But the too long didn't watch version is, it isn't that deep, bro. It really, genuinely isn't that deep. I enjoyed the mobility provided to me through the skills. I have always enjoyed more mobility, and that shockingly has not changed one bit. It's my gameplay style. I don't feel like I need to somehow express that I have a bigger, you know, blessed down there by showing that I can plant myself and figure out slide casting. I have a video of that on my channel, by the way. More mobility allows me to help my team more, and I believe that team morale and helping out is the #1 key to success, especially long-term and static. During progression, raiding, things are messy, and even after that, strategies can and do develop to support melee uptime. This tier, however, is abysmal and overly accessible for melee players, disclaimer in a second, so that doesn't really factor in the mobility as much as the past few months in Pandemonium as Fladellos. And now for the disclaimer. That's what most raiders have described this tier as being overly melee accessible, not even just my opinion, because frankly I heal it, so I don't even really notice or care, but that's how other people have described it. They're just like, mobility and melee uptime doesn't actually matter all that much here. Beyond that, I enjoy having a combat revive. It puts the Summoner and Red Mage at the top of my personal picks. DPS flex picks, if you have a res, you're up there, because I utterly despise it when I am pugging and both healers die. This at least gives us some chance at recovery. Another thing is that I as a healer have come to learn and appreciate the extra healing Phoenix gives. Single target on a tank with 1400 potency goes very far, or 700 extra potency to the entire team. That's marvelously appreciated. Remember, the target with Rekindle can even double dip and get that 700 AoE healing and then the 1400 stack together for 2100 potency of single healing target. Single target healing. I also enjoy the life cycles of the Summoner that the Summoner goes through, with Ifrit, with the long dopamine hitting cast time into rushing a target and then slamming them. Again, the dopamine hit is just huge with it. You're literally doing like a basketball slam. It's ridiculous. I don't know what else really has that same feeling. It's so unexpected on a caster. I love it. And then you go into Garuda with her fast bursts and her incredibly powerful ult, which is ridiculously awesome. That's very, very, it feels great. Not to mention Titan, that just brings so much damage and claps quite literally the enemy with earth. Clapping them with earth, bro. Yeah, that feels good. What Bahamut is another dopamine hit. Phoenix is another dopamine hit, although maybe to a lesser degree. Maybe Phoenix is like the equivalent of like oxytocin, since I'm hugging the entire team with heals and stuff. I don't know, but it feels good in a slightly different way. I mean, the Bahamut, you just have the Akamorn go out and everything. It feels absolutely ludicrous, but Phoenix feels good in a more wholesome, more oxytocin way. I don't know how to put it. But really getting to my point is the moment-to-moment gameplay shifts a lot. I don't find myself getting bored. Every minute I'm zipping through totally different styles of gameplay and I love it. Some people cite this and saying, oh, it's the same thing every time. And my reaction is kind of like, hello? Have you ever looked at any rotation in the game? Like even Dragoon, which I'd argue is one of the most fast-paced jobs in Final Fantasy XIV right now. At least it has a lot of buttons going here and there, and it follows, my point is it follows the exact same opener and filler outside of absolute bleeding edge hyper optimization for specific fights. There's a reason why we have a general recommended cookie cutter opener, and then that goes into the filler, because that's going to be what you do 99.9% of content. Most players won't even do it though. Moving on, I also very much appreciate having my own berries, because living is good, life is nice, and successive AoEs being able to throw at 40% of my life makes me far harder to knock out. Like, the healers need to genuinely be messing up for you to somehow lose me during that. Of course, this now gets into aesthetics, which might be boring to talk about, but literally summoning these huge entities that have been huge hallmarks of Final Fantasy XIV story is badass. If it grew to Titan Bahamut Phoenix every minute, yeah, it's awesome. And I even have my little emotional support pet that follows me through combat, which is currently the Chicken Nugget, the Titan Edgeye, which the little guy didn't really get enough love in the past. It's always been Garuda or Ifrit that you were using in past expansions outside of scary moments that you want the Titan Shield. I will never forget Hades' extreme healers with the puddle baits choosing to not help heal me. Those memories are terrible, and I still remember them. But the point is that the accessibility to barriers, I stand behind 100%, and having them accessible off of Titan, thank God. Anyhow, geez, this video was a little bit longer than I had hoped, I guess, but I had a lot to say about my guilty pleasure of playing the Summoner, because some of the stuff is wild out here. Some of the negative community perception is wild, and it's wild, and bro, I love the Summoner and I enjoy playing it. Its numbers are not in any way bad. It brings excellent utility and does go beyond the numbers with its flexibility and durability, with its mobility and shields. It makes it a very resilient DPS to pick up in prog, especially with the combat res. Also, its moment-to-moment gameplay gets shaken up dramatically between its many phases, which is just fun to me. I like the spikes of dopamine. I want to feel something when I play, and the Summoner gives me that.